Great. Okay. I think we're going to start. Yes. And I'll just keep an eye on who comes in. Yeah, thank you so much. It's amazing to see sort of, yeah, 23 of you here this evening making time for quite a revolutionary, transformative idea like a bioregional basic income. And yeah, we're going to be exploring this truly pioneering development, which we think is the world's first ever bioregional basic income. And we'll sort of explore how a guaranteed income might be able to regenerate land, livelihoods, and local economies, and what it could mean for farmers, growers, and communities everywhere. I'm Jo Poulton. I'm the campaign lead at Basic Income for Farmers UK, and I'm really excited to be hosting this webinar alongside our collaborators, Sarah Prosser at the Bioregioning South East Ireland group, and Roger Ahern from Greenman's Garden and Our Farm. But before we begin, I think it's really good to have some context, and I'm going to hand over to Sarah to briefly introduce the concept of what a bioregion is and how the idea of bioregional basic income came about and the wider vision that sits behind it. So I'll pass it over to you, Sarah.
Thank you very much. There we go. Lovely to see you all. Some familiar faces and good collaborators out there doing fantastic work. And I think that's what, in a way, it's what bioregioning is all about. It's about bringing people together around common areas of interest and seeing how we can make more by working together. So this is our website, and it sort of summarizes what we do. We try and make that collective action and systemic change to have thriving ecosystems and communities in South East Ireland. And the picture behind it is an artist's impression of a multi-species sward. So we always try and also bring in all sorts of different sectors into what we do. But we're here today to talk about bioregioning and basic income. So I thought starting with bioregioning, why bioregioning? And this, I'm just going to collapse you. There we are. This is sort of like the context where we're living in. It's all the dreadful things that are going on. Some of these came out today. Some of them came out last week. You know, some came out the week before. They're all quite recent. And some of them are headlines to do with health and ultra-processed food and the toxic forever chemicals. Some of it's to do with mental health and the conflicts in farmer and families and other sort of challenges all over the place. Some of them are environmental, and some of them are to do with water, and some of them are to do with land. Those are the two maps up in the top right there. And it's just basically there are so many problems going on, and it's a polycrisis, and everything's falling apart. And bioregioning, we think, is a way of reframing that into a sort of new narrative and a new container that can maybe make things fall together. So when we're lacking that coherence challenge, maybe there's something that we can do about it in bioregioning. So bioregioning, what we think, one way of sort of describing them is to say that they're natural containers for change. This is Ireland, and on the left is the map that every Irish person knows incredibly well. It's the counties and the identity that comes from those counties. But their boundaries are sometimes natural, but sometimes political. And the way that people work within them are often referring back to the county councils and the political side of things. So if you were going to define Ireland on natural boundaries and natural containers, it would look something like the map we made on the right there. And these are the 48 major river catchments. And you can see it's quite a different one. A lot of them will be cross-cutting the counties. But that's how rivers work. And that's how, therefore, nature works. And it gives us this big scale container within which we can start reorganizing for change and positive change to address some of the challenges we're working with. So that's the southeast areas down there. It's the Three Sisters rivers, the Blackwater, and the Colligan Man catchments going straight into the Celtic Sea down there. You can see it's quite a big area. And so how we work with it, we've turned to one of our founders, Common Land, who have been working sort of internationally with large-scale landscape transformation. And if we start on the right-hand side of things, we're talking about at least 20 years, probably many generations, but at least 20 years to turn around landscapes. And they will be different whether you're working in a natural zone, a combined zone, or an economic zone. But all of them can use the next column over on the left, this 4 returns. We're looking to bring back a sense of inspiration that can drive the other kinds of sustainability, the social, natural, and financial kinds of sustainability. and to do it all at once. And that's the holistic side of it. How can we really motivate people to be working in these really joined up ways on this big scale, in their own way, through their own passions, in a sort of way that can all become entangled and deliver big scale change. So this is how we work. If you start on the left there, we go out and we meet farmers like Donald Sheehan, and we get to know the amazing stuff they're doing. And then we try and meet all sorts of different people. Some of them are farmers, some of them are teachers, some of the decision makers, and we bring them together. And that's the picture below, and say, what is the common intent? What are we trying to do here together? And this is us writing our manifesto down there. The manifesto I'll come back to, but that is a sort of co-created, co-written direction we're moving in. And then what we do is we try and bring in some sort of outside systemic knowledge of how do we drive systems change? How do we bring in those 4 returns? And by listening and thinking and identifying, we work out this portfolio of thematic changes that landscape and those people might like to work with, because they know that that's what their land needs to bring back that sense of falling together and making positive returns. So the co-owned vision, I just wanted to highlight, please go to our website and listen to it. It's on the resources page. But what it does is give us that direction of saying that we want to do something, and I just pulled out this little paragraph here, that we want future food to come from a place where community is core and our aims are both visionary and practical. And we want to create new habits and new ways of working and viable ways of living, and to protect rivers, restore nature, cherish life. And we want a world where everything is connected, from rocks to the human heart. Now, all these words came from those people in that room that day, and they're a completely multi-stakeholder mix of people. So we represent all of that by this diagram quite often. The light blue topics are all the different kind of concepts, the kind of thematic areas that together need to be invested in and supported if we're going to make this landscape transform. And then they need to be supported. And what is that support? And those are the orange ones. One is our hub, that we're trying to sort of curate people, bring people together and build relationships. The other is more practical sort of things like learning and mapping and finance. We call that our support platform for enabling conditions. And that finance is really what we're doing today. So this is our financial flows that come into our area since we started in 2019. I just wanted to put it up there to show the kind of numbers we're working with, but also on the left-hand side, on the right-hand side, what we haven't secured. And I think if you look at the ones on the right-hand side, there are all sorts of competitive processes. It's the ones everybody's spending all night sitting up, trying to get in at the last minute, all that stuff, and then you don't get it in the end, and all that time and process that we had to go through. Tends to be the ones on the right, on the left, are more progressive philanthropists who rang us up and said, we really like this response to complexity at this scale. Would you like to work with us and explore some new ways of funding? So it's thanks to them and their vision that we've been able to experiment and really begin to deliver on that manifesto. So we do it within the means of what the funding we've got at the moment, which meant that to begin with, we gave out what we call catalyst grants, which were just 1,000 simple grants that were given out to see if they could leverage change. So individuals got them, like Ray McGrath got one that then unleashed more money from the festivals committee to run a Seasons of Change festival for older people. We gave one to Catherine Barron, who's an artist, and then we managed to get more money from Creative Ireland to do bioregional addressing. We then did Do It grants, which we say by, people just want to start by doing it, and you learn an awful lot by doing. So we call these our Learning by Doing grants. And we gave one of these to our farm, which managed to help us replicate some of the learnings from the Heronborn farming model in the Netherlands into a kind of cooperative owned farm in East Cork. And this is the one that Roger has been working at, who you'll meet next. But then the most recently, the kind of philanthropy we've been able to attract has been these 3-year contracts, which means that we can start thinking the next level up, which is about 17,000. And we're able to afford bioregional basic incomes and bioregional basic infrastructure to start building resilient infrastructure and the gaps in maybe meat infrastructure or grain infrastructure. How can we pinpoint different things? But we're here to talk about the bioregional basic incomes. So there is the world's first recipient of a bioregional basic income. That's Roger Ahern. And the aim of it really, I mean, I suppose it comes from my experience of working for years, being interested in that kind of model. But there's so many models and thinking and talks and research around it. And we just thought, let's just do it and do by learning. So we just did. And the idea is to support people living in the bioregion who are perhaps stuck in the system that isn't working optimally for them and their quality of life, but also their potential to work with the four returns. We award it by garnering expressions of interest from our multi-stakeholder network that we've developed over the last 3 years. And then our team considers the potential for bioregioning and four returns, and their board of directors awards it. But then it becomes completely unconditional. Then it moves into the unconditionality of basic incomes. I just want to say it's really dependent at the moment on bioregional finance flowing into the bioregion from these really progressive thinkers, funders who let us do what we want to do with funding. I just want to say that's just one part of a much bigger financial strategy. We also work with revolving funds, matching funds, and what we call next level funds. We've just been mapping out what the bioregion would need on a long-term basis, and the big flows. And we've just completed a major mapping exercise of all the different potential funding sources and which concepts could work and how we could build that up to go from our sort of 300,000 to 30 million, or whatever it might be in the future. So that's my last slide. I just want to say, we're standing up in the Comoros, looking out across on our bioregion. And can you just imagine if we were flowing money into this, and some people were getting bioregional basic incomes, some people were getting catalyst grants, some people were getting do it grants, some people were getting much bigger grants to start doing other, and then we move into equity and blended finance and all the different kind of financial flows that could come in. But with an orchestrator like a bioregional hub, you can start making sure that it's flowing out by listening to the people and listening to the land. So that's really where we are today. And I can speak for a long time about it, but I think I'll stop there and pass over to the world's first receiver of a bioregional basic income, which happens to be a farmer, which didn't have to be a farmer, but I think it's not surprising that it is one. So.
Thank you, Sarah. Evening all. My name is Roger, and I am an organic vegetable producer. I'm actually a market gardener. I'm located in southeast Cork, and I have I suppose it's just under an acre market garden. I grow a wide range of crops, ranging from kind of greenhouse crops like tomatoes or aubergines, right the way through to your sort of colder temperature brassicas. I've been a market gardener now with six years. And it is really a job that I love. I absolutely adore being a market gardener. I don't get that Monday morning dread. I can't wait for the weekend to wrap up. And I'm lucky enough to have been given the basic income. So this is a 3-year pilot. And basically how this works is that I will receive, or actually I am currently receiving €1,408 a month. And that gets paid directly into my bank account. I received my first payment in August this year, and that will continue until end of July 2028. And I suppose I'm just here to talk today on kind of how this has had an impact on my life and also on my market garden. The impact has been highly positive. I suppose, I don't know if many of you listening this evening are market gardeners, but I'm sure you're aware that market gardening can be a lot of work, and you don't always, or you won't necessarily make a huge income. Sometimes it can be kind of challenging enough to make what you would call a moderate to low income. It's definitely a way of life that it can be quite uncertain. You can do everything to the absolute best of your ability. You can crop plant to the absolute best of your ability. You can try to grow all your plants as best as you possibly can, and you can get 3 months of rain during the summer. You just end up taking on all of the risk. And I suppose the good years don't always necessarily counter for the bad ones. Saying that, it's a career that I won't ever stop. I love it, and I know that what I do is good. I suppose somewhere along my life, it became really abundantly clear to me how important good food is, how important spray-free or organic, locally produced food is. And it is something that we have to sort of produce at a local scale globally. And I think one of the biggest obstacles to people becoming a market gardener is potentially the lack of income. So on my own life, we'll say, since I received this basic income, my level of stress has just dropped off. It's fallen off a cliff. 2023 was a very difficult growing year in Ireland. Now it probably made me a much better grower. So something good did come out of it. But I just found my stress was high all through 2023, and 2024 didn't really help. And I found I was just becoming maybe a bit chronically stressed out financially. The thing with that stress is the only thing that alleviates financial stress is money. And when you're a market gardener, you just don't know how your cash flow will go, from any year. And I suppose when you're just stressed, you're probably not making the best of decisions. I think you need a clear head to make better decisions. Getting this basic income, just knowing that the very basic bills will always be covered, is huge. It's absolutely amazing. It's amazing for me, and it's going to be amazing for my garden. Already I'm taking better steps to sort of improve my soil. Like the key to my business is my soil. It is the number one thing, maybe after me. And sometimes when you are a market gardener and maybe you didn't earn as much as you would have liked, or maybe you're just a little bit scared, you don't know what's going to come, you can tend to push your land. You might tend to plant plants a little bit too close, or you might try to get a second or even a third crop out of a raised bed. I'll just add in a little bit more compost, it's fine. When what you should really be doing is planting in cover crops. So getting this income has really helped me make better decisions for my market garden. Moving forward, looking to next year, I've already used my first 2 payments to put in a car park at my field, at my garden. So basically what that's going to allow me to do is to start running classes where I can have people come in and park on site. It's going to allow me to take on an employee during the busy part of my season, which will allow me time to run children's growing classes. That's something that I've really wanted to do for a long time. And I ran a few trial classes this year, along with my sister, and they were such a massive hit. The kids just absolutely loved it. They loved it, and I was terrified. I didn't know whether these classes would succeed or how they would go, but the kids loved it. They loved getting their hands dirty, planting seeds, planting seedlings, shoving earthworms into their pockets. You name it, they were all about it. So I really want to expand on that for next year, and getting this basic income is really going to allow this to sort of happen. So yeah, that's kind of what I wanted to say on it. There will definitely be time for questions later on, and I am very happy to answer any and all questions. So thank you.
Thanks so much, Roger. It's just incredible to hear directly from the lived experience of someone who is receiving a bioregional basic income. And thank you so much for being willing to talk to us all this evening, and all of the other work you've been asked to talk on as well. Really grateful. So I'm going to move over to sort of what we've been doing at Basic Income for Farmers in the UK, to give a bit of context around the work and why we think it will be transformative to our food systems and landscape if we move to a basic income for all agriculture workers. And I'm just going to figure out how to share my screen quickly, which I should have practiced before. Share. Yeah. Okay. I just need to present. Yeah, okay. Great. Well, firstly, thank you everyone for coming this evening. It's like the most exciting thing ever for me, because 4 years ago, whilst I was training to be a small-scale vegetable grower in Cumbria in England, I dreamt up an idea of how we could get new entrants into horticulture, but agriculture sector as a whole, thinking about a guaranteed income floor or a basic income that would support new entrants, but also those already in agriculture. So seeing the work of Bioregioning South East Ireland and the momentum that they've gained is just like deeply inspiring and affirming and restorative. So yeah, thank you for all the work there. And it's an absolute pleasure to talk about our campaign over in the UK. We had the pleasure of having Roger join us. We are a campaign group. There's 15 of us, so we're farmers, farm workers and food producers from all over the UK, and we come together every month to have online meetings to move the campaign forward, but we also meet up twice a year in person. And this year for our October Strategy Day, it was, yeah, incredible to have Roger in person to tell us his story. As I explained, yeah, we're just a group of individuals, a collective that is, we believe in this idea and we want to see it socialized and pushed forward. We're not an organization. We're not researchers. We're just people who are like, that's a good idea. Let's see what we can do with that. So we won't have all of the answers yet, but we really just want to hold the vision. And these are some of the lovely people in the working group. But what is a basic income for farmers in our eyes? So we're using the 5 pillars of a universal basic income from the Basic Income Earth Network definition, which are that it's cash. So it's not like a lump sum or a voucher or a grant, it is cash. It's regular, so it could be at different intervals, whether it's weekly or monthly. It's individual, so it wouldn't go to a business or a land. It would go to an individual, and it's unconditional, so there's no requirement to do anything in order to receive it, and it's universal. So in the true UBI definition, every single person in a region, a country, an area would receive a basic income. We're obviously kind of changing that definition slightly to make it work for a sectoral approach to basic income. So we'd be looking at, yeah, it would still be regular, But the conditionality is a little bit different because we are talking about food production mainly. So if you're commercially producing food and you're an agriculture worker, farm worker who is part of a business or working in that way to produce food, then you would be eligible. And unlike the Common Agricultural Policy or the Environmental Land Management Scheme that we have in the UK that's replacing the European subsidies, it's not linked to area size or productivity. It's linked to the individual contributing to food production, including farm workers. And it would be that sort of like foundation to any of the payments. So it's that foundation of income security. And then if you make money from your farm, you'll get that on top. And if you make money from like environmental agri payment schemes in the UK, then you would make that on top. And you're probably still going to have a much lower income than most people. Some of the statistics around what an average farming family in the UK earn per year is less than £9,000 per individual, which is £20,000 short of the minimum income standard that the Joseph Rowntree Foundation set. So even if you're getting the basic income foundation, your income from your farm and some agri payment schemes, you're probably still way under that minimum income standard. We see it as universal because we actually do mean every single agriculture worker, every farmer, just regardless of practice, size or scale. And that's how we see it being on the road to a true UBI eventually, holding on to that universality. This is not the first targeted basic income that we're asking for. It's happened in Wales in the UK. So care leavers, people who were in foster care, or young people who have been in care homes, leaving between the ages of 18 in 2022, I believe, and finishing in 2024. 500 of them received a basic income of, I think it was nearly £1,600 a month, but that was before tax. They couldn't get the pilot to work in the tax system, so they had to make it higher to account for that. And then in Finland, there was unemployed people who received a basic income, and you'll probably be familiar of the basic income for artists pilot in Ireland that has just amazingly been made permanent policy. So yes, 2,000 artists received a basic income of €1,400 per month, which is the same as Roger. And one of the most amazing findings that I think from that pilot is that for every €1 invested in the artist, there was a return of €1.39 back to the Irish economy and society as a whole. And some of the findings that they discovered were that what we see is obvious, but we do have to make these cases. There was more time to create and develop new work when people received a basic income. Their well-being improved, their mental health improved, and reduced financial stress. There was more stability, so they were able to address long-term insecurity, which is a common thing in the arts sector. And that's sort of how I see artists and food producers and land workers as really similar, because we're providing like an essential service, a consumable for people, and art is an essential culture and agriculture is essential culture. So our work over at Basic Income Farmers UK is we're now moving into our piloting phase. So we have done 2.5 years of like talking to farmers and farm workers and food producers. And now we really just want to get going and get things done. And we can see a really strong case for devolved policy and piloting in devolved nations. And what we want to explore is, does it improve the health and well-being of our food producers? Does it enable new entrants to enter the sector? Does it increase local food supplies? Does it make farming a viable livelihood? And is it a fit for purpose just transition policy tool? There has been some other pilots in the world, in India with rural farming communities and direct cash transfers. They found that there was an increase in productivity because of the basic income, which they weren't expecting, but it was because of the ability to make long-term investments in their land that they were actually able to become much more efficient and develop climate resilient practices. One of the amazing findings as well was that the community groups started trading with each other. So they formed informal cooperatives because of the direct cash transfers. And when we've talked to farmers in the UK, the main words that come up for them if they were to receive a basic income for farmers would be valued, hopeful, trusted, positive, better sleep, creative, relieved, and recognised. So what is happening over here for the next steps? We are developing a few different pilots. We've got one that we're developing in Buckinghamshire and Oxfordshire that will hopefully see 4 new entrant growers receive a basic income of £1,000 a month for 3 years, but it's a basic income plus. So it will be a basic income, but we're also working with the farming cluster in that area to create access to land. So we're looking for up to 3 acres of land to provide to these new entrant growers. as well as a basic income and as well as optional training that they can partake in. We're also in discussions with Community Food Growing Network to design a pilot for London, urban growers and farmers, looking at BPOC and marginalised communities and how a basic income could support them. We're talking to producers on the Isles of Scilly, which could be really interesting to be a whole like island bioregion and how that impacts all the food producers there. And in Cumbria, we're chatting to upland farmers. And actually a new one in Totnes as well, in Devon. We're designing a pilot with regenerative farmer communities there. Obviously, there's a lot to explore, and we got a little bit of funding to do some work in Scotland where we really want to start scoping out where would the funding come from, how much money would it be, what is the eligibility criteria? Because we're saying sort of food producers, but how do you actually evidence that, and what kind of things would we need to get the eligibility working? Are we going to bump into any legal barriers? Like, are we actually going against any sort of like big rules that we're not aware of that if we started paying food producers? What would the payment level and frequency be? Is £1,000 a month enough? Is a monthly payment good, or is there a different structure that would work for some farmers? And how it would interact with other schemes that already exist, and is there a political pathway? Like, we might have this amazing idea, but is it gonna fly? Anyway, that's coming to the end of my presentation. One of my favorite quotes is, basic income doesn't solve every problem, but it makes every problem easier to solve. And from our perspective, if we want to strengthen the food system, we need to strengthen the existence of our food producers. And if we want food security, food sovereignty, we need our farmers to be secure. And a basic income for farmers is a bold, forward-thinking step towards the future. And your support would make a tangible difference. And if you want to find out more, we've got a mailing list. You can scan that QR code, or you can send me an email. But yeah, we're very much in pilot and doing mode, and like completely inspired by Sarah's work. And we're going to move over to question and answers now. So if anyone does have any questions, please do pop them in the chat. Great to have some information. Thank you, Bobby. Or if you want to raise your hand if you've got a question. If we need to start, we can help get the ball rolling if that's useful. Yeah, Roger, I was going to ask you, what do you think if like every farmer in Ireland was to receive something like a bioregional basic income? What kind of like impact on the landscape do you imagine that would have?
I reckon you would probably see a lot more younger farmers. We'd see, probably you wouldn't see so many people needing to just run into dairy. You might actually see a bit more vegetable growers. I think it would certainly help to make farming, especially market gardening, a lot more accessible. So you wouldn't just have this rye grass monocrop that we're seeing now across Ireland. You would hope that it would bring in more of, dare I say it, the right people, maybe people that would be more inclined to sort of look after the land, maybe take greater care of leaving ditches grow, and that sort of stuff. Maybe leaving our farmers could potentially leave a bit more space for biodiversity. Yeah, I could really only see it being positive.
Beautiful, thank you. We've had a question from Caroline in the chat, which says, thanks to all presenters. Could someone, perhaps Sarah or Roger, explain how a bioregional basic income differs from, say, a national level basic income?
Yeah, I can do that. I think, it comes down to the word bioregional, doesn't it? So, and why we work at bioregions is two reasons, really. One is that the soils, and bioregions are defined through the geology, the catchments that comes to the soils, and the soils give the tradition and the stories and the whole sort of networks and connection to land, and the fact that the southeast is really quite different than the northwest of Ireland, just as an example. So in some of those maps at the beginning, we saw that, in the southeast, the soils are different, the nitrate problems are different than in the north. And so we're saying that the bioregion is the scale at which some of the entangled kind of concepts or interventions begin to make sense. And if you do it as a universal, it can be, I mean, it would obviously land in different ways on different people, but the way that we can at the moment be empowered to be able to use it is at that scale, because one is the soil, the landscapes are different, and the other is that that's the scale at which we believe that relationships can be built to have that strength of network where people come together around that common intent, that manifesto that we talked about, that those people come together and they stay together. And we had our gathering last week, and people come together and they know each other, and you develop those relationships. And so everybody's on a sort of, let's do this together. And that's the return of inspiration that we think on our 4 returns comes from having those networks and feeling that you have that sense of a safe space of belonging where you can all work together. So it's because it's in a larger context of entangled things that we work at that scale. So I suppose it's a place-based initiative in a way that a national one wouldn't. And also because it's nested within our Catalyst grants, our Do It grants, our infrastructure grants. It's one of many different things going on. And I think that diversity of things going on is really important as the context, because it's not just everybody doing it at the same time in the same way. That makes sense, Caroline? I know you've done lots of research on this, so please speak up if you.
Yeah, well, thank you, Sarah. That's really interesting. Thanks. Yeah, that's great.
Brilliant. And I was just about to mention, in the UK campaign, we are sort of lobbying and advocating for the government to fund it, but we are also experimenting with other concepts. So partly inspired by Sarah and Bioregioning South East Ireland's work, we are looking at a bioregional commons fund, like what would a community wealth fund that was attached to the bioregion, or a place where funds and people and resources can gather in a bioregion that would then fund a sort of dividend or a basic income to all agriculture workers in that bioregion. And through using the river in the bioregion as like an eligibility criteria, like if you're a farmer that has runoff that would enter the water at any point, then you would receive a dividend from this bioregional commons fund. And we would like to see, ideally, if the mental well-being and security of farmers improves, does the river health also improve in correlation with that? So that's sort of, we're looking to government for support and some money, but at the same time, we're trying to build these ideas where the community, we see community finance as like much more long-term than sort of short-term political changeover. But yeah,
because that sort of that community wealth fund is sort of very much like our fund for the bioregion. We try and get bioregional money to flow in, and that sits pooled. It doesn't matter where it comes from. So the examples I used were philanthropists, but we've also had projects coming from other places, and it could equally be from anywhere. And we then pool it into a community wealth fund or a bioregional fund, and then we can then orchestrate, it all being spread out in different ways to make that impact. And that just reminds me of something that when Roger was speaking, he talked about, he's building a car park so that children can come, and the inspiration and the learnings that come from that. And I just think the difference between the lived experience and the sort of what if we had one, which tend to be quite self-oriented. The answers are sort of, I would feel, more seen. I would feel, I. But this ripple effect into the environment and the learning and the social and the inspiration, all the other 4 returns, I think is incredibly valuable. And, it's just amazing. And that's perhaps what the theoretical, it's hard to imagine what the ripple effects would be but when you do it in real life through lived experience, then you see how the rest of the community and the commons and everybody benefits in a bigger way than that self perspective, which is also important.
Definitely. And we've got another question from Michelle. Any plans to do a pilot study in Wales with the new SFS coming 2026? Would be a great time to trial. Yes, we are trying to get a working group together in Wales. So if you want to join, please do email me, because we do think it's a really amazing time to try and get Welsh politicians involved in these conversations. And then we've got another question from Meg. I'm curious how we can use BBI's Bioregional Basic Incomes to think about not just supporting people like farmers who are in production roles, But does anyone, speakers or listeners, have ideas about how bioregional basic income could support people who are carers of the landscape in a role specifically within a context where it's not a role that is traditionally defined within the economy, but could become a viable job for someone if it was supported through a bioregional basic income? Could we essentially create a new way of caring for the bioregional landscape by supporting a new innovative kinds of roles through a bioregional basic income?
And that's exactly why they were established, Meg, because it's like why we call them bioregional rather than production farmer. The first one happens to be, but we had an application from somebody working very much on the social and care side of things. We didn't actually go for it in the end, but it's that role that it could either, and I think in the when we were describing it to some of the of our funders, we were saying it could either be someone or it could be a missing link. So you're either filling those holes in the infrastructure and care, or it's someone who, without this, can't be as harmonious with both themselves and the landscape as they could be. So it's exactly that. Yes, that's why it's a bioregional BBI rather than anything else.
Are there any other questions in the room?
I think we should mention a little bit. We are also, because I know Tulip Bio and some of the people here are working on this research, and it was a really nice match. And I hope that we're all joined up. And we're also working a little bit with Task, which is the think tank for social change, who did the original survey for the artists. So the survey that they're developing will be a sort of very aligned with the artist income in Ireland, so that we can compare. But then we'll also be doing our own for returns harvesting on what kind of impacts this is making. So there's research. Poor Roger, he's like getting researched up and down and roundabout. But it's also, I think, like you said, Joe, at the beginning, it's the storytelling, it's the qualitative stuff that comes out of this lived experience that is so incredibly valuable. And if we're looking for a return of inspiration, that's where we can document the inspiration coming back for this kind of thing.
And we've got a question from John Baker. So you're essentially talking about, is it a universal basic income for everyone in a given bioregion?
One day, yeah. Yes, that'd be absolutely brilliant, yes. But we start within our means. I think that's why I showed the financial flow, so to begin with, we can afford 2 for 3 years. So we will be awarding another one, and we'll see whether it goes to, like you say, Meg's kind of carer, or it could be someone within our network from a different reason. We don't know who that might be. It could be anybody within our network. And then if people begin to, if our community wealth building and our bioregional wealth building gets bigger, then we can flow it out. But because we try and listen really hard to what will actually make a difference, it's not. It might be that some people actually want to do a project and they want funding for infrastructure rather than the basic income first. So when we try to prioritize, we're just trying to look for where the leverage points are in the bioregion, and is it an income, or is it a catalyst grant of 1,000 can be enough to do amazing things sometimes. And it's based on that trapping up from 1,000 to 8,000. So that 8,000, the do it grant was the learn by doing grant has also unleashed amazing stuff through the Our Farm experience. So I think we just need to be a little bit more agile to sort of just listen and see what level people would be inspired by, because some people are just like, I don't want this. I find it too embarrassing to I don't. It's not what I want. But if you said, do you want the same to set up something for your infrastructure? They'd say, yes, that's exactly what I'd like, and it'll change my life in a different way. So we're just trying to be really responsive to what people are saying would be the difference.
Yeah, and I had a question for Roger. How has a bioregional basic income impacted your winter? Like, what does winter normally look like for you, and how is it looking different this year?
This year is a very, very different kind of a winter. Yeah, I suppose realistically you have to make a good amount of money during this summer and autumn to survive. or wintertime. Like, uh, yeah, this is definitely a lot less stressful by a long shot. Like this, like the build up to winter this year is different than every other year. And for the first maybe 3 years working as a market gardener, and I was still trying to figure it out as well, but I had to take on like a full time job during the winter time, which was my sort of time to rest. I didn't get that opportunity. And as I got better at it, I definitely was able to survive winter a little bit better. But you're still kind of, you're still a little bit not completely safe or secure. But this one now is totally different. Yeah.
I think Janet had a question. Did you?
Oh yeah, go for it, Janet.
Yeah, it's for you, Sarah. I'm just wondering about the bioregion approach. Like, I understand, yeah, so maybe I've missed a little bit of it, but at some point, do you plan on taking those results and then interacting with government, at a national level at some stage, so that when you have the data that you're able to in some way, fitting with your project and resources, that you're able to interact at a national level so that we have like policy change, so it's just, I suppose, that kind of like relationship between the bioregion approach and then the national approach. And just wondering about if you could say something about that. Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think our overall mission is systemic change through collective action. And this, in a way, is learning by doing what that systemic recommendation could be. But I know that you're also doing that in a really good way. So I think it would be partnering up with the people that are also making that lobbying really well. So it'd be great if we could do it together. Because I don't think there's any point in us lobbying for it and you lobbying for it. You're doing the research so well that it'd be really good. I suppose what we're also lobbying for, though, in terms of systemic change, is bioregional finance, because maybe that's a slightly different flow of money that some major funders could, funders, not only philanthropists, I'm saying, flows of money coming in could be a way of supporting complexity in a way that if we just go for one case of the universal basic income or the local food producers basic income, then you're looking for a very specific kind of funding. Whereas if you look for bioregional funding, sometimes you get people that are looking for not one thing, but they like the interaction and entanglement of investment, and that this portfolio at a bioregional scale can be the scale at which you can invest in systems change in a way that you can't, if you just went into one kind of dairy farm or one kind of income, it's much harder to explain the linearity, because nothing's linear, it's all connected. So if we could set up bioregional hubs in every bioregion around Ireland and have these hubs sitting there that we could flow money into and then out of, then we can work with the local food producers in each bioregion through much more pooled finance mechanisms than might be able to be done if you're just talking about one thing at a time. That make sense?
Yeah. It does. I mean, it does, and it's complex in a way, but like that's fine. We can work through the complexity. But these are new concepts, I suppose. But 100%, I think there's, even as you described it there's an awful lot of potential for us interacting, and I'm sure we will completely as we go on. And then the other just point there is like, community wealth building is a concept. Are you, yeah, you're probably very well up on that. Do you see that, or what maybe role do you see that concept maybe within this body of work?
Well, I suppose it's nested within each bioregion, isn't it? Because I suppose that the whole concept of having an anchor institution that can start flowing transactions into local food producers in ways that recognises value created that's for the common good rather than the individuals, then I think it's a natural. I mean, the way that Joe uses the word community wealth fund for the bioregional fund, it's the same sort of approach, but then building in the practicalities of it. I suppose it's exactly how we worked. My background is from neighbourhoods in Norway, and that whole community wealth fund of finding the local anchor institutions and connecting up and using procurement. And I think a lot of the procurement discussion from community wealth building is a direct parallel to social enterprise conversations with community wealth building. They've been working on it for years on how to bundle their offers or debundle, and how do you attract it, and how do you document other kinds of flows and things. So I think there's some really inspiring examples, and it's just a matter of, again, just doing it. It's obvious that we should be doing it, you know, and let's do it. And also, I'm Scottish, and there's a minister for Scottish community wealth building, you know, and you just think, you know, it's a real, there's some really good places around to show that this can make a big difference. So I think it's it's a bit like the biodistricts. You can nest, you can layer everything into bioregions, and they all become sort of interactive. And we're not saying it's either or. It's all of it at once, but in that place-based size that makes it be able to fold together and layer into something that's really positive.
That's great. Thank you.
Thank you. We've had one more question from Michelle, which says, does the basic income come with responsibilities to follow or implement, or things not to do to qualify for a basic income, to make sure that nature is protected and that it's not taken advantage of? I can answer that to what Basic Income for Farmers UK are sort of advocating for anyway, is that we want it to be as unconditional as possible, because we do really truly believe that, like, a lot of farmers are making decisions because of scarcity mindset, inhibiting their ability to make really clear-headed decisions that Roger was sort of touching upon. And like there's a phrase that Alex Heffernan in the UK said, which was, farmers can't go green if they're stuck in the red. And our approach is, we need to get farmers out of the red and actually thinking with those clear heads. And we believe that they would actually start farming in alignment with their values. And we believe that those values are in alignment with nature, but they've never actually been given the opportunity to do so. So yeah, we're kind of like, we're radically trusting farmers in our process of giving unconditional cash to farmers, and wanting to see, do they actually spend more time with practices that enhance biodiversity and nature as an outcome of receiving that security. But it is something we're having to consider a lot with the pilots that we're delivering, because we are partnering with people who are agroecological institutions. So in some of our pilots, we are actually having to put the conditionality that you would be willing to explore practices of agroecology. So there are some light conditionalities coming out in our pilots, but our big vision is that it would be unconditional. But yeah, I don't know, Sarah or Roger, if you have anything to add to that.
I suppose, I mean, our ones are given to people who are within our wider stakeholder networks, I suppose, and they generally are people who have come in because they see that this is a place they can be, they can meet like-minded people towards that kind of vision and that common intent of holistic restoration, you know. So I think it's more by giving them a context and a behavioural sort of people around them that are going to inspire within that direction. But there's no conditionality to do it. It's just that's really the pool of people we tend to be pulling from. But Roger, I don't know about you.
Yeah, I would definitely agree there. I would just like to add as well, I suppose. I think you've kind of covered it, but when that pressure is off, you're definitely much more likely to do the kind of, maybe the things that you'd like to do more so than what you're forced into. Like, one thing, and I actually did want to talk on it, but I am kind of skirted past it. Like, getting this basic income has definitely allowed me to sort of grow the crops that are good for my customers, as opposed to good for my income. Like, being a market gardener, you know, salads, for one thing, are a very high value crop, and I can be stubborn to a fault sometimes. And one of the things I really wanted to do was to make sure that I grew the lower value crops that my customers are looking for, like cauliflower, cabbage, broccoli. Now, I think, had I not received the basic income this year, I think cauliflower would have been removed from my market garden forever. It is by a long shot my lowest income crop, but because of this basic income, I'm I'm still able to continue growing those crops that are important for my customers. So in that way, you kind of do find yourself doing the right thing.
Thank you, Roger. Just noticed the time. Wow, going to Q&A and then suddenly you're like, wow, the time has gone. Yeah, it's 1 minute to 8, and just thank you and gratitude really for everyone showing up this evening to hear about this idea, and for Sarah for sharing your amazing work, and Roger for sharing your lived experience with us. We will be uploading this recording to YouTube and sending it to you as well, and I'll ask Sarah if we can have the slides from her presentation, and I'll send the slides for mine to keep you in the loop. But yes, do get in touch with us if you want any more information. Sarah, is there any last plugs you want to make?
I want to thank you and introducing to Bath researchers as well, because I think we were sitting here saying, oh, wouldn't this be great to do, and just, but how do we choose and how do we do it? And I just remember meeting you said, and they were all saying, step into the power, just do it, and just stepping into the fact that you have the power to be able to try something like this. So I think we also need support to be able to experiment. So I'd like to thank you, Joe, for that, and thank Roger for being so willing to try it with us and tell and share all your stories. It's been amazing, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you everyone, and hope you have a lovely rest of your evenings.